The market smelled like smoke, blood, and old oil. Aliens walked past heavy cages and iron poles. Some laughed, others shouted prices. But most didn't even look at the girl chained near the back. She was small, with torn gray clothes and purple bruises on her arms. Her skin was pale blue, her silver hair dirty and matted. She didn't cry, she didn't scream, she just stared at the ground. Like her soul had already left her body, worthless, the traitor grunted. Kicking dust at her feet, she won't even talk. Probably broken in the head. Another traitor laughed. Leave her for the rats. No one wants a mute slave. The girl didn't react. Not even a flinch. She had heard it all before, her name. She couldn't remember it. She had one once, long ago. Before the chains, now she was just it. Or thing, or slave, people used her. Threw her, beat her, ignored her. She didn't hope anymore, because hope hurt worse than hunger. A cold wind passed through the market. Traders wrapped their coats tighter. The girl shivered, barefoot on the metal floor, still. No one looked at her until he came, a human, alone, quiet. Wearing a long brown coat, dust on his boots. A tired face with tired eyes. He wasn't rich, not by the look of him. He wasn't strong either, just quiet. He walked slowly through the market, looked at cages, at chains, at collars. But then he stopped, right in front of her. The traitor laughed again. That one. She's trash. Human, move along. The human didn't answer. He crouched down to her level. She didn't move, didn't look at him. But he looked at her, really looked. Her eyes were cloudy, half shut. Skin thin like paper. Still, he saw something. Something no one else saw, he whispered. Can you walk? No answer. He didn't repeat the question. Instead, he stood up and said, How much? The traitor blinked, then smirked. You serious? You want that one? The human nodded. The traitor laughed. Take her for 2 credits, less than a cup of synth coffee. Not worth feeding, the human pulled 2 small coins from his coat. He placed them on the traitor's dirty table. The traitor unlocked the collar and threw the key at her feet. Take it, she's yours now. Not my problem. The human didn't say thank you. He just stepped forward and gently touched her arm. She flinched, the first movement she had made all day. But he didn't pull her or drag her, he said, softly. Let's go. She looked at his hand. Rough but open, not clenched in a fist. Slowly, shakily, she got up. Her knees wobbled, but she followed. She didn't understand why. Maybe because no one had ever asked her to walk. Only to kneel, crawl, or beg. The market faded behind them. The shouting, the metal sounds, the cruel laughter, all left behind. They reached a small hover vehicle. Old but clean, he opened the door for her. She climbed in, still silent. As the engine hummed, she waited for orders. Or threats, or worse, instead. The human drove in silence. No words, no yelling. Just the soft sound of wind against the window. Minutes passed, maybe hours. Her head tilted to the side, her eyes heavy. She hadn't slept well in days, but now she was warm, and his silence was strange, but not scary. It felt like peace. When they reached his home, a small outpost near the edge of a forest. He parked. He helped her down, slow and gentle. The door opened with a soft hiss. Inside was quiet, clean, with warm lights and a soft chair. She froze, confused. Where was the cage? He pointed to a small room. This is yours now, he said. She blinked. She had never owned anything. Now someone gave her a room. He stepped back, giving her space. I'll bring food, he said, and walked away. She stepped inside, one slow foot at a time. A bed, a blanket, a small table. A glass of clean water. She touched the blanket. It was soft, too soft for someone like her. She sat on the bed, knees to her chest, still waiting for pain, for shouting, for something bad. But none came, just silence, and the soft sound of something cooking far away. She didn't know it yet, but her life had just changed. Because one lonely human had seen her. Not as trash, not as property, but as a person. And for the first time in years, she felt something move in her chest, not fear, but something she had long forgotten. Hope. She walked behind him, barefoot, slow, unsure. The cold metal road felt softer than the cage floor. But every step still hurt, not because of the ground, because of memory. She had learned long ago not to trust kindness. Kindness came with price. Kindness came before pain. The human didn't turn back to look at her. He walked ahead, silent, holding a small bag in one hand. No leash, no collar, no commands, just silence. The outpost was small and hidden between old trees. The sun was setting. Orange light falling on broken walls and dusty glass. It wasn't a rich place, but it was quiet. And she didn't smell blood. He opened the door for her again. No guards, no locks. He simply held it open and stepped back, like she was free to choose. That made her hesitate more than a whip ever did. Inside, the floor was wooden, warm under her feet. A fire hummed inside a metal box in the corner. It gave off gentle heat, like a whisper instead of a shout. A table, 2 chairs. A shelf with books. She had never seen books so close, and in one corner. A blanket was spread out with food placed carefully on top. She stared at it. Frozen bread, warm and soft. Some kind of soup that smelled like real vegetables, not rotten ones, and a silver spoon shining under the lamp. It felt like a trick, like a test, her stomach twisted in hunger. But her mind screamed, "No, sit," he said softly. Not as an order, more like an invitation. Still, she didn't move. So he walked to the blanket and sat down first. Then pointed to the space across from him. Again, no force, no chain. She waited for a slap, but none came. Slowly. Like a ghost, she walked forward. Her knees bent and she sat, hands shaking. The smell of the soup made her eyes water. Her throat felt tight, but she stayed quiet, always quiet. Speaking brought pain. He pushed the bowl closer to her, then leaned back, letting her have the space. She didn't touch it, not yet. Her eyes stayed on him, waiting for the trap. He broke a piece of bread, dipped it in his soup, and ate. Then nodded to her again. He was eating the same food. Not better food, that confused her more. Her hand moved on its own. She picked up the spoon, slowly. Her fingers closed around the handle like it might bite her. She took one sip, then another, then everything blurred. The heat of the soup hit her chest. The softness of the bread filled her mouth. And tears fell before she could stop them. She turned her face away, trying to hide it, but he didn't say anything. He just ate quietly beside her, as if it was normal. As if feeding a slave like a guest was not strange at all. After the meal, she expected orders, or chores, or punishment. Instead, he stood up and said, "There's water in the back. If you want to clean up," he pointed to a small door. "And there's a towel." She didn't move. "Not yet," so he added, "I'll be outside. If you need anything," then walked away again. Alone in the quiet room, she stared at the walls. She could run. She could steal something. But there were no weapons, no riches, no chains. Only warmth and silence. She didn't understand it, not yet, later. After washing for the first time in years, she touched her face in the mirror. Her skin looked clean, but the bruises still showed. Her eyes looked strange open, uncertain, alive. She walked back to the main room. The man was sitting in the corner. Fixing something. A broken radio, maybe? He looked up and gave a small nod. Not a smile, not a command, just a nod. She stood near the wall, unsure what to do. He pointed to her room. "That's yours," he said. The word hit her hard. Yours. She stepped inside like walking on clouds. A small bed, a soft pillow, a blanket that smelled like fresh air. She touched it, sat down slowly. Then curled up without thinking, she waited for the scream. The door slam, the night terror, but none came. Only the soft sound of wind outside and his quiet voice from the other room. "Holler, if you need anything." She didn't answer. She didn't have words yet, but inside her chest, a strange warmth had started to grow. It wasn't love, not yet, not trust, not peace. But something small, something like safety for now. That was enough. She fell asleep without fear for the first time since she could remember. The morning light came slowly, soft and golden. It touched the window of the small room and landed on her face. She opened her eyes fast, heart racing. But there was no shouting, no whip, no footsteps. Only birds singing outside and the soft ticking of a clock on the wall. She sat up quickly, pulling the blanket close. She had forgotten where she was. For a moment, she thought it was all a dream. But the clean pillow, the warm air, the quiet walls, they were all real. She stood slowly, her feet touching the warm floor. No cold cell, no chains. Her hands reached for the edge of the bed as if it might disappear. But it didn't. A knock came, not loud, not harsh. Just 3 soft taps on the door. Then his voice, low and calm. "Breakfast is ready." She didn't answer. But after a few moments, she stepped out. The table was set again. 2 bowls, 2 spoons. Steam rose from the bowls like a gentle breath. She stopped at the edge of the room, unsure. He looked up from his seat and said nothing. He just nodded and pointed to the chair across from him. She walked forward, slow, as if testing each step, then sat. Her hands resting in her lap. The bowl was full of some kind of porridge, thick and creamy, and beside it, a piece of soft bread, still warm. She stared at it. It felt wrong to eat like this. She had been given scraps before, rotten fruit, bones with no meat, hard crusts of dry bread. Never a real meal, never like this. He lifted his spoon and took a bite, then said, "Go ahead." His voice was quiet. No pressure, no demand. She picked up the spoon with both hands, her grip still weak. She brought it to her mouth and tasted it. The warmth filled her tongue, her throat, her chest. And her eyes began to sting. She looked down quickly, hiding her face. But one tear escaped and hit the table. He didn't speak, he didn't stare. He just kept eating, slowly, calmly. She ate in silence, spoon after spoon. Her hands stopped shaking halfway through. Her eyes stayed open this time, not afraid of what might come next. When she finished, she looked at him. He was watching her now, not with pity, but with something else, respect, maybe? Or understanding, he said. "You don't have to clean anything. Just rest today." She shook her head quickly. She didn't want to rest. She needed to do something. Anything to show she wasn't just a burden. She pointed to the dishes. Then to herself, he paused. Then nodded once. "All right," he said, but no pressure. She took the bowls carefully. Walking to the small sink, she had done this before on ships. In cages, cleaning after others, but this time felt different. This time, no one was yelling at her. No one would hit her if a dish slipped. Still, her movements were slow and careful, like each bowl was made of glass. He sat back in the chair, watching her quietly. She didn't speak, but he didn't mind. There was something calming in the silence between them. After she finished, she looked around the room. There were tools on a small table near the wall. Half-finished machines, wires, pieces of scrap tech. She didn't know what they did, but they looked familiar in her past life. She had cleaned workstations like these. Sometimes she had fixed small things, but was never allowed to say she could. She walked over and looked at one device. The wire was loose, the connector bent, without asking. She picked up a small tool and started fixing it. He watched with interest. "You know tech?" he asked. She hesitated, then gave a small nod, a pause. Then he smiled, not wide, but real. "That's good," he said. "I always need help with repairs." Her fingers moved faster now. Her hands remembered more than her voice ever could. She fixed the connector, pressed the wire into place, and turned the dial. The device blinked, green light, working. He let out a small whistle. "Well, guess I found myself an engineer." She didn't smile, but her shoulders relaxed. Just a little. Later that day, he made lunch. This time, she sat without waiting for permission. He placed a new spoon beside her bowl and said, "You can stay here as long as you want." She looked at him, confused. Stay? What did that even mean? Slaves don't stay. They survive. They serve, they run. But he was serious. And that scared her more than anything else, because staying meant feeling. And feeling meant she could get hurt again, still. As she picked up the spoon and took another bite, she felt something stir inside her. Not just hunger, but something deeper, something warm. She didn't know what to call it. But it was growing stronger with every spoonful. And for now, that was enough. The days passed quietly. Like gentle wind through leaves, the alien girl moved with more calm now. More strength in her legs. She still didn't talk, but her eyes no longer stared at the floor. She looked around more, noticed small things. The way sunlight touched the walls in the morning. The way the human hummed softly when he worked with wires. The sound of birds near the trees outside. She cleaned the table before he asked. She fixed broken tools with her hands. She even started preparing the tea the way he liked. It became routine, not command, not survival, but habit. A new kind of life. One morning, he brought in a flower, small, white, glowing softly at the edges. He placed it in a cup on the table and smiled. "It bloomed after years," he said. "Thought it was dead." She touched the petals gently. Her fingers paused there. She didn't speak. But he saw something in her face, a flicker of something old. "Do you remember your name?" he asked quietly. She looked at him, then away. Shame crawled up her spine. She shook her head slowly. No one had called her by name in so long. She had forgotten it, or maybe forced herself to forget. "That's okay," he said, not angry, not sad. He stood up and went to the shelf, pulled out a small book. He opened it and showed her drawings, flowers, stars, animals, planets. Then pointed to a page with names, soft names, strong names. Names from human and alien tongues alike. "We can choose one," he said. "Only if you want." She stared at the page, unsure. Was this a trick? Why would he give her that choice? He turned the page again and pointed to one word. "Lyra," he said. "It means light that returns." She blinked. Light that returns. Her hand moved slowly, touched the word. Something inside her chest moved too. Not pain, not fear, something warm, Lyra. He repeated gently. She mouthed it silently, then nodded, just once. But it was enough. He smiled and said, "Then it's yours, Lyra," that night. She stared at the blanket in her room. She whispered the name to herself. Again and again, it didn't feel like a chain. It felt like a key to a door she thought would never open. The next day, he wrote it on a small piece of metal, bent it into a curve, and handed it to her. "For your room," he said. "In case you forget again." She held it like treasure. Later, she carved the name into the edge of the desk with a tool, carefully, slowly, like it mattered more than anything else. Because it did. From that moment, She was no longer just the silent girl, she was Lyra. And even though she still didn't speak, she felt like a person again. But not everything stayed quiet, far beyond the forest edge. The alien trader who once called her property was watching. He had heard whispers. A human had taken a worthless girl from the slave market. Now she was walking, working, even smiling. That was not allowed to him. She was still his. She had no rights, no value, no voice, and no one steals from him. Not even a lonely human living in the woods. He sent a message to a group of thugs. "Find her," he wrote. "Bring her back. Or break the man who took her." Back at the cabin, Lyra was learning to write. Slow letters, shaky lines, but real effort. He watched her from the other side of the room, every now and then. He'd correct her grip or smile when she got it right. She looked up at him once and smiled too. Small, soft, shy, but real. It was the first time he saw her teeth. The first time he saw a part of her that wasn't just surviving, but living. Later, while he cooked. She walked outside. The air was cool, the sky turning red-orange. She saw her reflection in the window-clean face. Healed skin, eyes full of thought. She whispered her name again. Lyra. Then a shadow moved near the trees. Her smile faded. She felt it before she saw it. Danger. A shape watching from the forest. Then it disappeared. She ran back inside. He noticed the fear on her face instantly. "What's wrong?" he asked. She pointed outside. Hands shaking, he moved to the door quickly. Picked up a scanner. Nothing showed, but her face said everything. He didn't doubt her. He locked the door. Checked the windows and handed her a small metal device. "Press this if you see anything again," he said. She nodded, holding it tightly. Her hands didn't shake as much anymore, but deep inside. She knew the past was not finished with her. And maybe this home wouldn't stay safe for long. Still, she had a name now. She had a place. And she had someone who stood between her and the dark. Lyra would not run this time. Not yet. Not without a fight. The sun was high the next day. The sky clear, birds flying overhead. Inside the cabin, Lyra cleaned the tools. Her hands moved with quiet skill, each wire, each screw. Each circuit was handled like something precious. She had learned more in a week than most did in months, not because she was fast, but because she had never been allowed to learn before. Now she was free to touch, explore, fix. And her fingers remembered what her voice had long forgotten, the human whose name was Jack. Worked beside her, he didn't speak much, but when he did, it was kind. "Careful with that coil," he'd say, or "Nice work, Lyra." And every time he said her name, it felt like sunlight in winter. She had just finished repairing a small solar unit when something outside caught her eye. Movement, fast, low, hidden behind trees. Not an animal, not wind, something else. She stood slowly. Her hand tightening on the metal table, her eyes followed the shadows through the trees. Jack noticed her stillness. "What is it?" he asked, standing too. Lyra pointed toward the window. 3 figures stepped out from the trees, 2 large aliens in dirty armor. One smaller figure in the back, it was the slaver. His face was twisted in anger, and his voice, even from far away, carried like a bad smell. "I've come for what's mine," he shouted. "She's a runaway, and you're a thief." Lyra stepped back. Her heart racing, her knees felt weak again. But this time, she didn't fall. Jack walked past her, calm but firm. He opened the door, stepped out, and closed it behind him. He stood at the edge of the porch, his hand resting on the old blaster at his belt. "She's not yours," Jack said, voice cold. "She's free now," the slaver laughed, a cruel sound. "You think your tiny cabin and rusty blaster make her yours?" He stepped forward, his guards beside him. "She was bought in a legal market. She has no papers, no status, She's mine. Jack didn't move. She's not a thing, he said. She's a person, the slaver sneered. She's property. She has no voice. No proof. She's a slave. Suddenly, a new voice spoke, soft, shaky but clear. No, Lyra said. Standing in the doorway, Jack turned slightly, surprised. It was the first time he'd heard her speak. The slaver's eyes widened. You dare speak? He hissed, but Lyra didn't step back. She took one slow step forward. I'm not yours, she said, her voice still quiet. But I'm not silent anymore. Jack smiled slightly. The slaver growled. I warned you, he shouted, pulling a weapon from his side. But Jack moved fast, in one motion. He drew his blaster and fired at the ground in front of them. Dust exploded upward. The guards jumped back. Jack stepped forward, eyes burning with something Lyra had never seen before. Not rage, but something older, something deeper. I don't care who you are, he said. I don't care what papers you carry. If you try to touch her again, I'll bury you under these trees. The slaver snarled but stepped back. He wasn't ready for a fight, not with someone who meant every word. He pointed a shaking finger. This isn't over, he warned. You'll regret this. He turned and disappeared into the forest. His guards followed, silent and pale, when they were gone. Jack lowered his weapon. Lyra was still standing there. Frozen, he walked over to her. Placed a hand on her shoulder. You all right? He asked. She nodded slowly. I spoke, she whispered. He smiled gently. You did, he said. And it mattered. They went back inside, but the silence had changed. It wasn't peaceful anymore. It was tense, alert. Lyra sat near the window now, watching, waiting, that night. She didn't sleep in her room. She stayed near the front door. Holding the metal tool Jack had once given her, a simple wrench, but heavy. She wouldn't run this time. She wouldn't hide. Jack brought her a blanket. Try to rest, he said. We'll figure it out tomorrow. Lyra looked at him and said, I won't let him take me. Jack nodded. Neither will I. And as the night wrapped around them, they sat side by side, two broken souls who refused to break again, ready for whatever came next. The night was heavy. The sky had no stars. Only black clouds moving like slow monsters above the trees. Inside the cabin, Lyra didn't sleep. She sat in a chair near the door, one hand holding the wrench, the other resting on her knee. Jack moved quietly, checking windows, testing locks. He didn't tell her to go back to bed. He didn't treat her like a child. He treated her like someone who had the right to defend herself. I set up the motion sensors, he said. If they cross the tree line, we'll know. She nodded once. Her jaw tight, she was scared. But it was a different kind of fear now, not the fear of being hurt. The fear of losing something she had only just started to believe in. Hours passed, the fire burned low. Jack fell asleep on the couch with a tool belt still around his waist. But Lyra stayed awake, watching the shadows dance on the walls. Then it came a sharp beep from the console near the window. Red light flashed once, then again, they were back. Lyra stood quickly. Jack was already up. Eyes wide but clear, he looked at the console. Then at her east side, near the generator, he said, They're trying to cut the power. Lyra didn't wait. She grabbed the flashlight, the wrench, and followed Jack to the back door. He handed her a small device. Push this if you get cornered. It'll blind them for 10 seconds. She took it and nodded. They moved through the trees, quiet, careful. Lyra's bare feet didn't make a sound. Jack moved like a shadow beside her. They reached the generator, 3 large boxes sitting on a metal slab. Beside it, 2 figures crouched low, trying to rip the wires. Another one stood nearby, holding a knife. Jack stepped forward fast. Step away now, he warned. The guards turned, weapons drawn. One rushed at him. Jack blocked with his arm and hit back with a pipe he had brought. Metal against bone, the alien fell with a loud groan. The second guard charged Lyra. She didn't scream. She didn't run. She swung the wrench with both hands. It hit the side of his leg with a crack. The guard yelled, dropped his blade. She hit him again in the side, then shoved him down. Jack grabbed the third one before he could run. A punch to the jaw, a kick to the stomach. The guard collapsed, wheezing, but behind them, a cold voice spoke. You should have stayed quiet. It was the slaver. He stepped out from the trees. Blaster in hand. Move, or I shoot, he growled. Jack stepped in front of Lyra. I won't let you take her. You don't get to decide, the slaver spat. She belongs to the market, and the market belongs to me. Lyra stepped forward slowly. No, she said, I don't belong to you. The slaver laughed. You think one word can change your worth? She held up the flash device Jack gave her. The slaver scoffed. What's that? A toy? She pressed it. The flash exploded bright white light that filled the air. The slaver screamed, dropping his weapon. Jack didn't wait. He kicked the blaster far, tackled the slaver to the ground. They struggled in the dirt, fists flying. The slaver roared. Jack punched him hard in the face. Then again, then again. Lyra ran to his side and pulled him back. Enough, she said softly. He's not worth your soul. Jack stood, breathing hard, blood on his hands, scratches on his cheek. The slaver groaned in the dirt, beaten, broken. They tied the three guards and dragged them into the open. Jack activated the emergency beacon. Soon the patrol drones would come. The law would handle the rest. Lyra stood in the middle of the clearing. The wind touched her hair gently. For the first time, the air didn't feel cold. It felt clean. Jack walked to her side. He didn't say anything. He just stood beside her. She looked up at him. You fought for me, she whispered. He looked at her. No, he said. We fought together, and in that moment, Lyra knew something deep. Something she had never believed before. She was not weak. She was not property. She was not alone. She was free. The sun rose slowly over the forest. Soft orange light touched the leaves and the edge of the small cabin. Inside, Lyra sat at the window. Her hands around a warm mug. She was quiet. But not the same kind of quiet she once was. This quiet was peaceful, not broken, calm, not afraid, outside. The patrol drone hovered silently above the field. It had taken the slaver and his guards away. Their chains now belonged to someone else, not to her, not anymore. She had slept on the couch the night before, not because she had to, but because she had chosen to stay near Jack after the fight. They had both stayed in the front room. Him on one side, her on the other, not speaking much, just breathing. Just being alive. Now he stood by the stove. Cooking breakfast, he moved with a small limp from the fight. But his hands were steady. He glanced at her and gave a nod. Porridge is almost done. Lyra nodded back. She didn't smile yet. But something close to it touched her face. After they ate, she went outside. The garden needed water. She picked up the small metal can and walked along the edge of the field. The flowers looked brighter today. The air smelled of green leaves and soft soil. She poured water slowly, carefully, one flower at a time. Each drop felt like a promise that the land was safe now. That she was safe now. Jack joined her later. Holding 2 cups of tea, he handed one to her and sat on a rock nearby. They watched the wind move the branches above them. Birds landed on the fence, chirping softly. After a while, Jack said, "Do you want to stay here? For good?" Lyra looked down at her cup. Her fingers tightened around it. She didn't answer right away. She had never been given the power to choose. "Stay," he said again, "not as a guest, not as a slave. Not because you owe me, but because it's your home too. If you want it. She looked at him. Really looked at the man who gave her a name, who stood between her and danger, who let her fix things. Speak freely and eat without fear. Tears welled in her eyes again. But this time they didn't come from pain. She nodded slowly. Yes, she whispered. I want to stay. Jack smiled. A real smile this time, not small. Not guarded, just warm. And in that moment, something inside her changed forever. She wasn't a stray. She wasn't a tool. She wasn't trash from the market. She was Lyra, and she had a home later that day. Jack brought out an old metal sign. It was dusty, the paint peeling. He handed her a brush and a can of fresh paint. Let's write a new name for this place, he said. Together, they sat on the porch. Painting in silence, she wrote the letters slowly. Carefully, her name on one side, his on the other. Underneath, one word, home. They nailed the sign near the path that led through the trees. Anyone who came now would know this was not just a cabin. It was a place where someone was finally free. The next few weeks passed with peace. Lyra laughed for the first time one morning while chasing a rabbit from the garden. Jack heard it from inside and smiled without looking up from his tools. She learned how to cook her own meals. She added spice to the soup, burned the bread once, and laughed again. She built a small bench in the garden with her own hands, and every time she used a tool, she remembered the first time she picked up a wrench to defend herself. At night, she sometimes sat by the fire with Jack. Not saying much, but the silence between them was warm, like a blanket shared between friends. One night, the stars came out, clear and bright. She pointed to one above the trees. Do you think anyone else is looking at that same star? Jack looked up. Maybe, he said. But I'm glad I'm here. She nodded. I never thought someone like you would care about someone like me. He looked at her and said, I didn't care about someone like you, Lyra. I cared about you. Her heart felt full in a way she didn't have words for. So she didn't speak. She just sat beside him, close enough for their shoulders to touch. No chains, no collars, no fear. Just two people, one human, one alien, and one home, built not from walls, but from kindness, and something that felt a lot like love.